When Sarah and Mike finally bought their first home in upstate New York, it felt like a dream come true. A modest 1940s farmhouse, paint peeling just enough to feel rustic, surrounded by whispering pine trees. The place had character, as their realtor called it, meaning it needed work. Still, they were thrilled. After weeks of unpacking, Sarah noticed a locked door in the basement. Not just locked, chained. A heavy iron chain wrapped around the handle, secured with a thick, rusted padlock. Probably just storage, Mike said, brushing it off. But something about that door, it didn't feel right. Every night after that, Sarah swore she heard faint tapping sounds echoing up from the basement. By the third week, Sarah couldn't sleep. The tapping had turned into soft knocking. Sometimes it sounded like whispers, low, muffled voices beneath the floorboards. Mike didn't hear it. He worked late and slept like a rock. One night, when she couldn't take it anymore, Sarah crept downstairs. The basement light flickered weakly as she descended the old wooden steps. The air was damp, metallic. The chain door sat motionless in the corner, but something about the silence felt wrong, too still. Then, as she turned to go back upstairs, the chain rattled. Just once, loud enough to freeze her in place. She ran upstairs, locking the basement door behind her. The next morning, Sarah mentioned the door to Mrs. Jensen, their elderly neighbor who'd lived in the area for decades. The woman's face went pale. "You didn't open it, did you?" she asked sharply. When Sarah shook her head, Mrs. Jensen lowered her voice. "Good, don't. The people who owned that house before you, they had a son. Quiet boy. Strange. They kept him down there. Said he wasn't right in the head. Then, one day, the house went up for sale, and no one saw the family again." Sarah felt cold all over. "What happened to the boy?" she asked. Mrs. Jensen only said, "Some doors are better left closed," and hurried off her porch. Days passed, but Sarah couldn't stop thinking about the story. Then came the smell. At first it was faint, like damp wood, but soon it grew stronger, rot, thick and sour. She tried candles, air fresheners, bleach. Nothing worked. The odor always came from the basement, right near the chain door. Mike finally agreed to take a look. He fetched a flashlight and went down. "It's probably just a dead animal," he called up. A minute passed, 2. Then she heard him gag. "Jesus, it's awful." He coughed, coming back up, pale-faced. "You're right, it's coming from behind the door." That night, neither of them could sleep. The smell seeped up through the vents, like the house itself was breathing decay. Sarah started dreaming about the door. In her dreams, she could hear a child crying from behind it, begging to be let out. Sometimes she'd wake up and swear she heard the same voice echoing faintly through the floor. Mike said it was just stress, but she could see the fear in his eyes too. Finally, one stormy night, after a loud bang from below, Sarah snapped. "I can't take it anymore," she said, grabbing a hammer. Mike tried to stop her, but she marched into the basement, trembling. The chain glistened in the flashlight beam, slick with condensation. "We're ending this," she whispered, and she began hitting the padlock. A lock broke on the 5th swing. The chain fell to the ground with a heavy clang that echoed through the house. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the door creaked open on its own. A rush of cold air hit them, thick, damp, and foul. Sarah raised the flashlight and stepped closer. Behind the door was a narrow concrete room, no bigger than a closet. The smell was unbearable, and then she saw it. A small wooden chair, a few old toys, and scratches covering the walls. Words etched again and again, "Let me out." The light flickered. Mike turned to speak, but the door slammed shut behind them. They tried pulling at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The chain had somehow wrapped itself back around the handle, tightening. Sarah screamed for help, pounding on the wood. Then from the darkness inside that small room, they heard footsteps, soft, dragging footsteps. A figure began to emerge from the shadows. A small boy, pale and silent, his eyes black and hollow. "You opened it," he whispered. Sarah stumbled backward, her flashlight shaking violently. The boy smiled, his teeth too sharp, too many. "Now it's your turn," he said. The light went out. The last sound Mike heard was the chain sliding across the floor. 2 weeks later, the realtor listed the property again. The description was identical, except for one new line: "Basement recently sealed for safety." Mrs. Jensen watched from her porch as the new for sale sign went up. She crossed herself quietly. At night, sometimes she thought she saw lights flickering behind the basement window. Tiny flashes, like someone was waving a flashlight for help. Once, she even heard a faint metallic rattle, like a chain moving on its own. But she never went near that house again, because everyone in town knew, once you open the chain door, it never truly closes.